Chapter 12 of Stepping Heavenward by E. Prentice. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Missy, Guangzhou, China. Stepping Heavenward by E. Prentice. Chapter 12. November 6th. Auntie has put me in the way of doing that. I could not tell her the whole story, of course, but I made her understand that Ernest needed money for a generous purpose and that I wanted to help him in it. She said the children needed both music and drawing lessons and that she should be delighted if I would take them in hand. Auntie does not care a fig for accomplishments, but I think I am right in accepting her offer, as the children ought to learn to sing and to play and draw. Of course, I cannot have them come here, as Ernest's father could not bear the noise they would make. Besides, I want to take him by surprise and keep the whole thing a secret. November 14th. I have seen by the way Martha draws down the corners of her mouth of late that I am unusually out of favor with her. This evening Ernest, coming home quite late, found me lolling back in my chair, idling, after a hard day's work with my little cousins, and Martha sewing nervously away at the rate of 10 knots an hour, which is the first pun I ever made. "Why will you sit up and sew at such a rate, Martha?" he asked. She twitched at her thread, broke it, and began with a new one before she replied. "I suppose you find it convenient to have a whole shirt to your back." I saw then that she was making his shirts. It made me both hot and cold at once. What must Ernest think of me? It is plain enough what he thinks of her, for he said quite warmly for him, "This is really too kind." What right has she to prowl around among Ernest's things and pry into the state of his wardrobe? If I had not had my time so broken up with giving lessons, I should have found out that he needed new shirts and set to work on them. Though I must own I hate shirt-making. I could not help showing that I felt aggrieved. Martha defended herself by saying that she knew young people would be young people and would get about, shirts or no shirts. Now, it is not her fault that she thinks I waste my time gadding about, but I am just as angry with her as if she did. Oh, why couldn't I have had Helen to be a pleasant companion and friend to me, instead of this old, well, I won't say what. And really, with so much to make me happy, what would become of me if I had no trials? November 15th. Today Martha has a house-cleaning mania, and has dragged me into it by representing the sin and misery of those deluded mortals who think servants know how to sweep and to scrub. In spite of my resolution not to get under her thumb, I have somehow let her rule and reign over me to such an extent that I can hardly sit up long enough to write this. Does the whole duty of woman consist in keeping her house distressingly clean and prim, in making and baking and preserving and pickling, in climbing to the top shelves of closets, lest haply a little dust should lodge there, and getting down on her hands and knees to inspect the carpet? The truth is, there is not one point of sympathy between Martha and myself, not one. One would think that our love to Ernest would furnish it, but her love aims at the abasement of his character and mine at its elevation. She thinks I should bow down to and worship him, jump up and offer him my chair when he comes in, feed him with every unwholesome dainty he fancies, and feel myself honored by his acceptance of these services. I think it is for him to rise and offer me a seat because I am a woman and his wife, and that a silly subservience on my part is degrading to him and to myself, and I am afraid I make known these sentiments to her in a most unpalatable way. November 18th. Oh, I am so happy that I sing for joy. Dear Ernest has given me such a delightful surprise. He says he has persuaded James to come and spend his college days here, and finally study medicine with him. Dear, darling old James, he is to be here tomorrow. He is to have the little hall bedroom fitted up for him, and he will be here several years. Next to having Mother, this is the nicest thing that could happen. We love each other so dearly, and get along so beautifully together. I wonder how he'll like Martha with her grim ways, and Ernest's father with his melancholy ones. November 30th. James has come, and the house already seems lighter and cheerier. He is not in the least annoyed by Martha or her father, and though he is as jovial as the day is long, they actually seem to like him. True to her theory on the subject, Martha invariably rises at his entrance and offers him her seat. He pretends not to see it and runs to get one for her. Then she takes comfort in seeing him consume her good things, since his gobbling them down is a sort of tacit tribute to their merits. Mrs. Embury was here today. She says there is not much the matter with Ernest's father, that he has only got the hypo. I don't know exactly what this is, but I believe it is thinking something is the matter with you when there isn't. At any rate, I put it to you, my dear old journal, whether it is pleasant to live with people who behave in this way. In the first place, all he talks about is his fancied disease. He gets book after book from the office and studies and ponders his case till he grows quite yellow. One day he says he has found out the seat of his disease to be the liver, and changes his diet to meet that view of the case. Martha has to do him up in mustard, and he takes kindly to blue pills. In a day or two he finds his liver is all right, but that his brain is all wrong. The mustard goes now to the back of his neck, and he takes solemn leave of us all with the assurance that his last hour has come. Finding that he survives the night, however, he transfers the seat of his disease to the heart, spends hours in counting his pulse, refuses to take exercise lest he should bring on palpitations, and warns us all to prepare to follow him. Everybody who comes in has to hear the whole story, everyone prescribes something, and he tries each remedy in turn. These all failing to reach his case, he is plunged into tenfold gloom. He complains that God has cast him off forever, and that his sins are like the sands of the sea for number. I am such a goose that I listen to all these varying moods and symptoms with the solemn conviction that he is going to die immediately. I bathe his head and count his pulse and fan him and take down his dying depositions for earnest solace after he is gone, and I talk theology to him by the hour, while Martha bakes and brews in the kitchen, or makes mince pies, after eating which one might give him the whole Bible at one dose without the smallest effect. Today I stood by his chair, holding his head and whispering such consoling passages as I thought might comfort him, when James burst in, singing and tossing his cap in the air. "Come here, young man, and hear my last testimony. I am about to die. The end draws near," were the sepulchral words that made him bring his song to an abrupt close. "I shall take it very ill of you, sir," quoth James, "if you go and die before giving me that cane you promised me." Who could die decently under such circumstances? The poor old man revived immediately, but looked a good deal injured. After James had gone out, he said, "It is very painful to one who stands on the very verge of the eternal world to see the young so thoughtless." "But James is not thoughtless," I said. "It is only his merry way." "Daughter Catherine," he went on, "you are very kind to the old man, and you will have your reward. But I wish I could feel sure of your state before God. I greatly fear you deceive yourself, and that the ground of your hope is delusive." I felt the blood rush to my face. At first I was staggered a good deal. But is a mortal man who cannot judge of his own state to decide mine? It is true he sees my faults, anybody can who looks, but he does not see my prayers, all my tears of shame and sorrow. He does not know how many hasty words I repress, how earnestly I am aiming all the day long to do right in all the little details of life. He does not know that it costs my fastidious nature an appeal to God every time I kiss his poor old face, and that what would be an act of worship in him is an act of self-denial in me. How should he? The Christian life is a hidden thing, known only by the eye that seeth in secret, and I do believe this life is mine. Up to this time I have contrived to get along without calling Ernest's father by any name. I mean now to make myself turn over a new leaf. December 7th. James is my perpetual joy and pride. We read and sing together just as we used to do in our old school days. Martha sits by with her work, grimly approving, for is he not a man? And as if my cup of felicity were not full enough, I am to have my dear old pastor come here to settle over this church, and I shall once more hear his beloved voice in the pulpit. Ernest has managed the whole thing. He says the state of Dr. C's health makes the change quite necessary, and that he can avail himself of the best surgical advice this city affords, in case his old difficulties recur. I rejoice for myself and for this church, but Mother will miss him sadly. I am leading a very busy, happy life, only I am perhaps working a little too hard. What with my scholars, the extra amount of housework Martha contrives to get out of me, the practicing I must keep up if I am to teach, and the many steps I have to take, I have not only no idle moments, but none too many for recreation. Ernest is so busy himself that he fortunately does not see what a race I am running. January 16th, 1838. The first anniversary of our wedding day, and like all days, it has had its lights and its shades. I thought I would celebrate it in such a way as to give pleasure to everybody, and spent a good deal of time in getting up a little gift for each, from Ernest